Good evening. Welcome to our 7th Selborne College and Old Association career webinar. This is being part of our 150 Jubilee celebration. My name is Stephen Grant. I'm employed at Selborne College as Head of English, and I'm a Senior School Counsellor. I've been at Selborne College for 23 years. The theme of this webinar is obviously healthcare, and we'll be getting some of the thoughts of our Old Selbornians in this field. There'll be a discussion focused for our boys who have an interest in careers in medicine, pharmacology, optometry, and other fields of healthcare. Our panelists will share their experience, what they've learned, and what they wish they had known earlier. We request all attendees to please submit questions during the panelists' presentations. Do so by clicking on the chat icon, which you should see on the top right-hand corner of your screen. It's important that you submit questions as the panelists speak, but they'll only be answered after all the panelists have given their presentations. This will also showcase the success of a few of our Selbornians, of whom we're extremely proud. Our first Selbornian that we're going to have, or Old Selbornian, is Dr. Rhys Pienaar, who matriculated from Selborne College in 2014, served as a custodian of the key and was head boy in his matric year. He started studying medicine at the University of Cape Town in 2015, finishing in 2020, graduating with his MBCHB degree, passing with distinction. Rhys is currently in his final year of his internship, this is colloquially known as housemanship, at Tygerberg Hospital in Cape Town, and after this he'll be doing his year of community service. I now hand over to you, Dr. Rhys Pienaar.
Thanks, Mr. Grant. I just want to say, firstly, thanks to all the organizers for the invite. I know there are many young Old Selbornian doctors out there, some just a few years older than me, who are very well established in their careers already. So I appreciate the invite. I think where I can maybe offer a bit of guidance for a webinar like this as a junior panelist is maybe just to explain a bit how it works, how medicine works, and what maybe your life as a junior doctor in South Africa looks like. It's something I maybe didn't really fully grasp or conceptualize when I started this whole journey. So it's a 6-year degree at pretty much all South African universities. The Free State does it in 5 years. And that's followed by 2 years of internship, or some people call it housemanship, where you are usually then placed at a secondary or tertiary level hospital. It's 2 years working for the state, and then, as Mr. Grant said, 1 year of community service, which is also known as a Zuma year. Pretty much all health professionals do that here. It's usually a placement in a primary level care or a peripheral or rural level hospital. Often not a lot of senior support, and you might have to get comfortable practicing independently. After this is where you are free, as some people would say, you're free to practice independently. Most people would probably work in the state for another few years before going into private general practice, or this is the time where some would choose to, what we say, specialize. That is then a 4 or 5 year registrar post that you would need to apply for, and it's highly competitive. It's more competitive than getting into med school is, and that inevitably means it would most likely be another few years of work experience, of postgraduate studies, of building up your CV to basically outcompete your peers for that post. So you start to see that your student career and your junior career as a doctor is a lot of it is spent in state, and a lot of it is in primary healthcare, working in casualties, working in ECs, working in outpatient clinics. And so what may be my biggest suggestion to a young Selbornian wanting to pursue this is go do some job shadowing at Free Hospital or Cecilia Makawani. I did it when I was in school, and it is an eye opener into what your job is going to look like one day. Do an EC shift, do an overnight shift, sort of get a feel for what it is that we do. It's awesome to go to your GP or your family friend, but it's not really a true representation of what your job is going to look like for those first few couple of years. So the rewards, am I happy? Did I make the right decision? I would say yes, of course. There are many junior doctors who might have different answers, and you see it in the media. You might have watched the last Carte Blanche episode that maybe paints a bit of a different picture. But it's problem solving, it's practical and theoretical, it's learning something new every day, it's making your brain tick. And yeah, you're touching people while you go about it, and that's ultimately, you know, why we chose to do what we do. You have those adrenaline rush moments and those moments where you maybe save somebody's life, and that really is an undescribable feeling. So it really has been beautiful so far. Probably one of the biggest challenges, and it's it's something difficult for a 17, 18-year-old to maybe conceptualize, but unfortunately it's a career where we trade our time, our personal time, for our profession, for your work, for your income. And in your junior years, it's unfortunately you don't have much of a say in that balancing act. So it is an important consideration to know that you most likely are going to have to give up quite a lot of your personal time. So for the sake of time, I think that's where I'll leave most of it. I know medicine is very competitive. I know it's popular. I know the application process is extensive. So if any of you afterwards have questions, just ask. If you need help with an application process or making your CV look good, please don't hesitate to message me. Just type my name in on Facebook or Instagram. I'm sure it will come up. And yeah, please don't feel shy to ask. I'm more than happy to help. So yeah, that's it for me. Thanks, Mr. Grant.
Thank you very much, Reese. Now we've got Avamelia join us. I'm going to just introduce you, Avamelia. Avamelia matriculated from Selborne College in 2013. He served as custodian of the key and head boy in his matric year. He then studied at Wits University in Johannesburg, graduating with a Bachelor of Pharmacy in 2017. He's currently working at Sodelani Group of Pharmacies in Mthatha as lead pharmacist, and he's extremely happy in his current position and within the group. Avamelia is passionate about giving back to his community, and with most Selbornians, he's still very passionate about sport. So over to you, Avamelia. Thank you very much for joining us.
Hello, everyone. It's an honor to be here. It really is an honor to be a Selbornian. My message to the boys is straight and simple. I want to keep it very short. I know the boys are very excited. To the boys, first of all, thank you for being here tonight. I want to say to you guys, then, most important thing for me is to keep in touch. You must keep in touch with one another, and in anything that you do, you must make sure that you must keep in touch with one another as Selbornians. Life can get tough, things can change, but when you keep in touch with people that you grew up with, you find that whatever you're going through, it makes things better. That's the first thing. I do encourage everyone to get involved in whatever they desire to do. Getting involved actually tests you as a person. Your emotional intelligence is out there. So getting involved is a good thing for you and your character in terms of character building. I'm not sure if it's time to answer the questions now, or should I just continue?
No, you can just finish your little presentation, and then we're going to have a question and answer session right at the end.
Okay, okay. Yes, I did say I'll keep it short. One of the last things is also I want you guys to learn. One thing I'm passionate about is learning, education, people, earning obviously a salary and making money and having a side hustle into the whole sheep business on the side, and also returning to the community that you come from. So most of us come from the Eastern Cape. Let us not forget our province, let us make it out there and also come back and do something that you're going to leave behind, because you are a product of the Eastern Cape. So don't forget that, gents, Magwajin, and the boys, don't forget that. And also, I want to encourage you guys to learn from events like Enyobeng. We're not saying go, don't have fun. We're not saying don't enjoy your youth. We all enjoyed our youth. We'd be kidding if we say we didn't. But some more than others, Mr. Nick. But yeah, you must enjoy your youth, but use this one. Make sure that you're making your parents proud, whether they're up there or even here. Just make sure that you keep your head up high and make sure that you're doing your best at all time. And you must shine. You must be the hardest working person in the room, because you're a Selbornian, so just keep that in mind and do recreational things, run, exercise, join fitness clubs, play golf, whatever you want to do. But like, don't just go to a club and drink, it's very lame. But yeah, I want to encourage you guys and emphasize on those little things. And it really is an honor to be here. But yeah, that's good.
Thank you very much,
That's my
Alon.
thoughts.
And I've got Mr. Nicholas Wilshire. He matriculated at Selborne College in 2009. Born in King Williamstown, went to Dale Junior, then saw the light and came to the college. Started grade 8 in 2005, matriculating in 2009 as a Duck scholar. Nick played first team hockey and represented board in his matric year. He also played a little bit of cricket. He studied a Bachelor of Optometry at University of Free State from 2010 to 2013, and then started working straight away after that. In 2016, Nick began working at the Eye Centre in East London under the ophthalmologist Dr. Cook and Dr. Bonneter, and he enjoys his job extremely. Thank you very much. Nick, over to you.
Thanks very much, Mr. G. Good evening, everyone, and thanks so much again for this opportunity. I feel very privileged to be part of it amongst some very, very bright people, one of whom I actually met in my matric year, Dr. Chapman. Yeah, just a bit about me. Mr. G, you covered most of it. When I finished matric, I had no idea actually what I wanted to do. I had applied to do accounting, engineering, and to do optometry. Ended up going the optometry route because I wanted to work with people and also still have my weekends to myself. Medicine was also possibly on the cards, and maybe looking back, I should have maybe done it, but I don't think I would be where I am if I hadn't studied optometry. So yeah, as you said, I graduated after 4 years in Bloemfontein. Fortunately, with optometry, we don't have to do a Zuma year. You can actually go start working straight away. I think anyone who's straight out of varsity is going to go into a private practice on their own is going to be a bit brave. So I actually started working for my uncle, who's an optometrist in East London and around the Eastern Cape, actually. And after working with him for a couple of years, I then went to Cape Town. Definitely a big culture shock on that side, coming from little King Williamstown, Petty, Stutterheim, to go to Cavendish Square and the V&A waterfront. Just the changing customer, the type of customer, the amount of wealth that there's such a wealth difference between the two areas. And it was very much eye-opening for me, but I think I sort of needed it. The retail side of optometry is real. It's definitely become more of a business than it is still a profession, but it's more sort of based on your frame sales, selling of sunglasses, etc., etc. When I was in Cape Town, I was contacted by Dr. Cook because I was moving jobs, and he offered me a position at the Eye Centre here in East London under him and his partner, Dr. Balata. And I took it with open arms because I always wanted to actually work under ophthalmologists. Needless to say, it's been 6 years. I haven't left yet. I've actually decided to do my master's in optometry. So yeah, it's been a topsy-turvy journey for me, but I've enjoyed every minute of it. Don't think I would have changed anything. Doing optometry sort of gave me a feel of what it was like to be in the medical field, touched on it a little bit. And if someone's wanting to go into working with people, definitely the medical field is the way to go. If you work off people's vibes, if making people happy is what you want to do, then it's definitely something to go into. I just want to also add that, you know, it doesn't always have to be medicine, pharmacology, optometry, dentistry, or anything like that. You've also got the whole technology aspect to the medical sciences. The technology that's around these days is amazing, the imaging technology, and they need people to be able to service and to run those machines. So I definitely think that any young Selbornian that is looking at being in the field of technology, you know, medical technology is definitely a big, and it's a growing field as well. Yeah, as I said, I'm still in East London, came back to my roots, as Abumile said. I'm not sure if I'm going to leave little old East London. It's lots of fun here, and everything's 10 minutes away. So yeah, thanks again for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. And yeah, open to any questions if anyone has anything to ask. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Nick. That is really interesting. And now we've got Dr. David Welsh, who matriculated from Selborne in 1983, after which he studied medicine at UCT, graduating in 1989. David completed his internship at Groote Schuur Hospital in 1990, followed by 9 months as a medical officer at Duncan Village Day Hospital and Free Hospital. He then spent a year in the SADF as a medical officer. David has spent 4 years in England completing a fellowship in general surgery at the Royal College of Surgeons, before returning to Groote Schuur Hospital in 1996 to complete training in general surgery, but they ended up completing a fellowship in neurosurgery in 2000. Then worked as a consultant neurosurgeon, the Department of Neurosurgery and acute spinal cord injury until 2013. Since then, he's been in full-time private practice at Vincent Perotti Hospital in Cape Town. His interest is in the disorders of the spinal column and the spinal cord. Thank you very much, Dr. David Welsh.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Thanks very much to Alan for inviting me. It's very kind. I've enjoyed the other contributions so far. So, very interested in what Reese said, in that I had no interest in doing medicine when I was in matric. I was looking at all the other professions, including law and engineering, but spent a couple of days with a family friend at Cecilia Makawani Hospital, that was Colin Lazarus, and came away absolutely enthralled by what I'd seen, the fact you could cut somebody open and look inside and close them up. And from then on, I wanted to be a surgeon. And I really wanted to be a general surgeon, and landed up in the UK after training, doing a rotation. A rotation is just generally looking at various aspects of surgery. So I spent some time doing emergency medicine, orthopedics. I did 6 months of neurosurgery, and then a lot of general surgery. General surgery is surgery of mostly of the abdomen, surgery of the bowel and so on. And my 6 months in neurosurgery in the UK was very hard, and I hated it. And the only thing I came away knowing is that I didn't want to be a neurosurgeon. And I returned to Cape Town in 1996 to complete my training in general surgery. And it's just interesting how your careers advance in ways which are very surprising at times. And after 2 years in general surgery, feeling somewhat unappreciated, I was rotated into the neurosurgery discipline again. Found myself amongst people that I really related to, started doing work which I found fascinating, and eventually qualified as a neurosurgeon. And then again, you know, most people who do neurosurgery want to operate on the brain because it certainly has a certain mystique. The surgery is very interesting, and the anatomy is absolutely beautiful. But as I qualified, there became a post open in our unit for spine surgery, and essentially I took that up, and the start of my work there coincided with the old paraplegia ward at Conradi being moved to Groote Schuur. So that's the acute spinal cord injuries unit, and it meant I became involved in spine surgery primarily, which is again something that I didn't particularly see myself doing, but it just so happens that it coincided with a very interesting time in spine surgery. It was the start of MRI imaging being widely available, and up on the screen there are some MRI images of a spine, and if you look carefully at the tip of the spinal cord, there's a little round tumor pushing on the nerves. And Luisa, if you can just change the slide. Next slide, Luisa. That's what the tumor looks like at surgery. And the other great thing about surgery is the wide availability of the operating microscope, and you can see how that makes the anatomy absolutely stunningly beautiful, and allows you to perform very careful and delicate surgeries. Next slide, please, Luisa. And there you can see the tumor's been removed, and you can see all the nerve rootlets hanging off the spinal cord and going down to the legs. Next slide. The other thing that was more and more exciting in spine surgery is the widely available technology. And on the left-hand side of that screen, you can see a patient's CT scan, which has been reconstituted as a three-dimensional scan, and then a computer program has been used to plot the perfect position of screws which are used to join two vertebrae together, and then that produces an acrylic jig which gets used in the surgery to place the screws, and you can see those on the right-hand side, and those screws are perfectly placed. And really what I'm showing with these pictures is that the technological advancements make it a very exciting field to work in. It's great fun. The days are very varied. You spend some time sitting, talking to patients, getting to know them, finding out what they're interested in, what their needs are. And you spend other times shielded from the patients in the operating room, where you can practice a craft, which you can get better at and better at as you get older. And it remains interesting. You see interesting things, you do interesting things, you solve problems in the theatre, and it's really good fun. So those are the things which I've really enjoyed about my job. I think the thing I most enjoy about my job is working with people. You get very close to people, and you find out a lot about what's important to them, and sometimes you walk some very difficult roads with them. So we are present at death, grief, injury, but we also see some very happy things, and it's a way of experiencing life in a very full way. The things that I found less likable, it's a long road. It takes a hell of a long time. You never really finish training. You're always learning, and you always wish you knew what you knew 10 years before. And it can be physically very demanding. So to spend 10, 12 hours in the operating theatre, it can take it out of you. And I think as you get older, unfortunately, that impacts on your family life. When you're a young man or a young person, you have a lot of energy, but it has ramifications as you get older. So I think the costs of career should always be factored into what we do. It's very important to know why we do something on the plus side in terms of the enjoyment, the satisfaction, the income, But it's also very important to consider on the downside what that means in terms of the cost to you and your personal life. And that's one thing to think about. Would I do it again? Probably. I don't feel particularly qualified to do anything else. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. David Welsh. Now we've got Dr. Peter Chapman, who matriculated from Selborne College in 1968. He served as custodian of the key and head boy in his matric year. He completed his medical degree in 1974 from UCT. Then his internship at Victoria Hospital in Wynberg in 1975. Peter worked at the Frere Hospital in East London from 1977 to 1980, before specializing in internal medicine, which he completed in 1984. He then completed a super specialization in pulmonology in 1986 and was consulted at the UCT Department of Medicine from 1987 to 1991. He went into private practice as a pulmonologist in 1992, and he's still practicing in this regard. Peter's married with 3 children and is a home group leader at Common Ground Church. His hobbies include running, history, and photography. Over to you, Dr. Chapman.
Thanks so much, Steve. It's a pleasure to be here. I think they put me on the panel to drop the age of the contestants, just to give a youthful twist to the evening. So it's been a great joy to be amongst you guys. And I must say, just starting, I'm so impressed with the quality of the Selbornians. I mean, I'm an enthusiastic Old Selbornian, and today we've seen just a cross-section of the brilliant quality of the people. I mean, I know Dave personally. I know the patients who I've sent to him, and Dave does a great job. So, you know, I can just testify to the quality of Dave's performance. And, you know, it's more than just the technical side. There's a character and a personality and an integrity that comes through, which is not the case necessarily in all other medical people. So compliments to Dave, and thanks to you guys for excellent presentation. So, you know, I'm just giving a little bit of a perspective on my side. You've heard my career path, and perhaps just a word or two about what pulmonology is. So pulmonology is the study of the disease of the lung, both acute and chronic. So it incorporates a lot of intensive care. Those of you aware of the implications of the medical community during the COVID-19 epidemic, the majority of the care was provided by internal medicine specialists and led by pulmonologists. Pulmonology and intensive care rose out of the days of the polio epidemics of the 40s and the 50s, where people had paralysis and they couldn't breathe, and they were put into machines, which were what we call negative pressure ventilators. They should known colloquially as the iron lung, and out of that came the discipline of intensive care. So that was the beginning, and the other side of it was the treatment of tuberculosis. So that is where the sort of the outpatient clinical side of pulmonology began, and from that it's expanded as our knowledge of disease and our sophistication of insight has grown, and then has been hugely aided also by imaging techniques. So the advent of CT scanning has made a huge difference in terms of gripping and understanding the mechanisms and the intricacies of lung disease. And it comprises a wide range, ranging from infectious disease such as pneumonia and tuberculosis to industrial lung disease, inhalational lung disease, allergic lung disease, asthma, and of course traumatic lung disease. So it's got a wide range. I love it. I often ask myself, why did I become a specialist in internal medicine? And I think really the seeds for that were sown during my time at Frere Hospital, which I loved. It was a great experience working with fine people, quality men, and they really inspired me. And I think I learned a love of precision in medicine. That's what led me into internal medicine. And then, much as David found, personalities play a big role. So when I came to specialize, the folk in the pulmonary unit were just very nice people. I loved the work. I enjoy physics, and pulmonology is very much about physics and gas flow and diffusion. And I love pattern recognition. And of course, that is a vital part of X-ray interpretation. So I love it. I love my work now. I think, as many of us did at school, we're not absolutely sure what we wanted to do, and we could easily have become engineers or other practitioners of applied science. but I'm very grateful I did medicine. I really enjoy the work I'm doing now. Would I have done anything differently? Well, there were a couple of hard things along the line. Dave's talked about the pressure of training, and Reese is in it right now. And I remember as a registrar working hugely long hours, going to work on Monday morning at 7 o'clock and working right through and coming home at Tuesday at 7 o'clock in the evening, and then going back working the whole week and working the weekend and Saturday from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Sunday. And eventually you just get so tired, you're nauseous, and your family then forget what you look like. But you know, it was a period you go through, and you push through it and you come out. But it was tough, but I enjoyed it. I'm grateful I did it. Perhaps there were two issues that I'd like to address. The one is, you know, we've talked a lot, and I believe rightly so, about hard work and diligence. But I think one has to balance that, because when I got to UCT, as Nicholas did, getting into the big world, I felt very insecure and unimportant. And so I decided I would make my mark by, and I did it by achievement. So I worked like a slave. And at the end of my first year, I came top of the first year medics, and I got the gold medal called the Sorenstein Medal. But actually, it was an absolute illusion. And I realized then that there is a danger in making an idol of achievement. And we need to hold that in I think carefully as we consider our careers. And as a Christian, I believe our fulfillment comes in our relation with God, and not in primarily in achievement. Achievement's an important thing, but it finds its place as we can employ it in serving humanity. And we've learned today, we've heard from all of you that you really enjoyed caring for people, and that to me is a great privilege. But there are some hardships. I contracted tuberculosis. I had a patient on a ventilator which wasn't properly ducted, and so all the effluent of his respiratory tract was being blasted into the atmosphere while I was around him, and I and one or two of the nursing staff in that ICU got TB, which is not uncommon, but what was a little bit uncommon was that I actually got a drug-induced hepatitis, so they couldn't treat me. And I was giving tutorials to the students for 4 or 5 months, seeing these poor people whose lungs had been destroyed by TB, and knowing I also had TB, and I wasn't being treated until my liver recovered. So that was a rough time, and in retrospect, it was a very dark patch of my life. But ultimately, my liver recovered. We found alternative drugs I could take. I recovered, and I'm grateful to say I'm fine. I ran on the mountain, and I'm fit. But it was a dark time, and I would like to think that added to my understanding of what it's like to be a patient. Sometimes the hopelessness that you might have to face. And Dave has alluded to the fact that one of our callings is to walk with our patients through some dark times. And that's a very great and important part of our role. It's a privilege to be able to do it. And it's an honor to be able to give in the closeness and the intimacy into people's lives. So you know, that's just a little pen picture of me and of my experience. I hope that's helpful. I think if you've been at Selborne, you already are well skilled at personal relationships, and you have a great opportunity to make a great contribution in medicine. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Peter Chapman. Now, please, anybody who've got any questions, please go to the chat and add questions there. Maybe while we're waiting for a question or two, go to the youngest guy, Reese. Maybe if you can just tell us a little bit about the studying, what you do in each year, and maybe the big jump from school to varsity. Obviously, it's quite an eye-opener going, and what sort of how you got to balance your life.
Yeah, there's I would say you two trains of thought. Some, if I talk about med school, some might say you know, getting in is the harder part, and med school is sort of sailing from there. I don't think that I can appreciate people who have that experience. I don't think it was mine. I'd say the most difficult part of it is probably consistency. It's 6 years. There's not a lot of opportunity to mess up too many times. So the toughest part is probably consistency for 6 years, which can be tough. But yeah, I think, you know, those people who have put their mind to it for maybe even grade 8, but definitely the last few years of high school have sort of in that mindset of you know, putting in what it needs and willing to put in the hard work and a graft. So often motivation isn't the problem. It's maybe just consistency for all that time.
No, thank you very much. Just thinking maybe hearing of Amelia speaking about giving back to the community, thinking sort of state medical facilities often sort of almost look down on where they're excellent doctors within the state system, and obviously we probably need the Zoom a year to keep the state system going. I don't know, maybe Dr. Chapman, you were at Frere Hospital for a while. What would you sort of say are the callings towards the sort of state medical thing rather than private practice, or vice versa?
Yeah, that's absolutely vital. I mean, I am so grateful for the mentors I received who were full-time hospital workers, and I certainly was one for 5 years when I worked at UCT as a consultant. It's absolutely vital. They're the backbone of our community. They create the structure in which we can learn. I think it's a great and noble calling, and it's vital, absolutely vital. And of course, I really don't believe we should have a private-state divide. I don't believe that's. I think we should see each other as colleagues, and I would like to believe that here in Cape Town, certainly in the world of pulmonology, that is exactly what happens. So we have a very close relationship. We share journal clubs, we interact with patients, we pass patients to and fro between ourselves. I think that's a really important point. And I certainly have just high respect for my colleagues in private practice, many of whom are doing fantastic things. They have the opportunity to do research that we don't do. They're pushing knowledge forward. They're vital. So it's a great and important thing.
Thank you very much. Maybe Amelia, you can tell us a little about pharmacy. Basically, you've got new developments in the drug industry and things. And how does one keep up to date to know what sort of advice to do? And maybe how do you read doctors' handwriting?
Maybe I could ask the doctors here that, like what goes behind their thoughts, train of thought when they're writing like that. Because, it's very difficult to read at times. You even find guys calling back the doctor, asking them, "Hey, doc, I mean, what?" But as a pharmacist, you get given these doctor's handwriting from varsity. They become case studies. They become part of the training process. So by the time you leave the varsity, you have a good idea of what to expect. And I mean, you do check the scripts and all of that. So it comes with the experience, and it's something they would know once they join the field. Personally, I really enjoy being a pharmacist. I enjoy how I interact with the community. I enjoy the difference that I make. And I mean, I wanted to be a doctor until I actually went to Frere. This is in grade 12 now. No offense to the guys that want to, but the blood and everything, I didn't take it well, so I wasn't up for that. I wasn't up for the touching stuff, but I was up for helping and assisting where I can. So so that's just my experience. And in terms of growing with pharmacy and keeping up with the recent developments, I mean, we do have those apps. We do have these. We can go to the National Development Health website. We have colleagues, we have CPDs, which are continuing professional developments, which are webinars similar to this platform, where we get educated by various researchers, about their recent developments. We also attend launches from drug companies that have sort of research with regards to the latest medicines and all of that. So it's all of that in combination that we use to keep up. And I really do enjoy my job. And if I would go back, I would take it. Yeah.
Well, hearing from you, Amelia, maybe the job shadowing at the Frere Hospital was really insightful. Any of the panelists can answer this, but what sort of thing do you think young men need to look at when they're choosing career? Maybe if they're unsure what to do, what advice would you give them? Where should they go? How would you recommend that they look at careers maybe from a totally parent type of, or is it?
Yeah, it really depends on what they want to do to the world, because I was an Ellen Gray Orbis Foundation scholar, so the way that I experienced high school was different, because we went to workshops. We were sort of trained to think in a way that is entrepreneurial, and think big, always think big. So I'd always advise them to have no limits, whatever that they think that they can do, let them show the world their difference, let them bring that light. So if they can hold on to that, they can be whatever they want to do, and pray for the support structure of the family, because that's very important. 6 years, as Reese mentioned, is a long time. So, I mean, you have to have a solid support structure. So, and let them fly, man. I mean, like, let them believe on whatever that they want to do, that they can do it. And obviously, some realistically speaking, some families are different, so it comes within the limits. But as a kid in grade 8, listening to this, you can be that doctor that you want to be. You can be that pharmacist that you want to be. You can be the optometrist that you want to be. You can be whatever, as long as you believe, man, and you put the work into it. It boils down to that, So yeah, man. I mean, even if you're still trailing behind the merit list, you can get on the merit list, attend maths, stop bunking or whatever these kids do. Yeah. So yeah, man, you can be the change that you want to see. Yeah.
I've got a question coming through here from Mr. Andrew Deere. What would you advise a learner who may not be accepted in his or her preference of career sciences, but wants to still continue towards their goal of health sciences? If anybody would like to answer it, what would you do if somebody wants to go into health sciences but doesn't make it into their specific career that they've chosen?
I mean, Reese, do you have any experience of that? I mean, I could talk to it a little bit, because I have a son who's interested in doing medicine, and we've looked at some of these aspects, and it seems that there are very few opportunities for mature students to study medicine in this country, which is very disappointing. All the medical schools seem to like to take students straight out of school, and it gets harder and harder to actually reverse that process. So even people who do, for example, a BSc medicine degree, which is a non-medical degree, but a lot of the similar subjects, even if they excel at those subjects, can find it difficult to then access the health sciences faculty. Or, for example, doing physiotherapy or other allied biochemistry type degrees. So in some ways, the people who are extremely committed eventually make it, but find themselves having consumed 7 years working through that process, and only they know whether I think it's worth it. I don't know if you have more up-to-date understanding of that, Reese, in terms of your UCT experience, or not that you had to go through that, but you might have had colleagues who did.
Luckily not, but yeah, I have to agree with you. It's I wish there was an easy roadmap, but there are not a lot of postgrad students who join us, and it is sad because they bring a different maturity to our class and to a patient experience even at a student level. So it is sad. You get people, I think a lot of them go a BSc route and try to get in through a BSc. I think the difficulty with that is to stay motivated for all that time. Some of them, it might jump after a year, but it's really a minute handful who after a year or two jump over to medicine. And unfortunately, some of them do go an undergrad degree, a postgrad honors, a master's. We have PhD students who are then only joining us after getting a PhD, and it's the same for other allied health. So it is a pity. It's a definite pity, and those are often the students who are even more motivated than some of the people who did manage to get a place. So it's sad to see. Hopefully we'll see a change, but yeah, it's a bit of an unfortunate reality, I think.
Yeah, I think there's a sad reality that there's actually a real shortage of medical personnel, but there's also a big shortage in training facilities for medical students. And a lot of our students are, if they're wealthy enough, can go overseas and study, but obviously the average student can't have that opportunity if they can't make it. And the requirements are getting tougher and tougher because the selection is actually so strict with few places. Just another question that's come through. How has COVID affected all the people in the medical fraternity?
I think I can probably speak to that because my colleague, I'm being a senior statesman of medicine. I don't do frontline work, but I did for many years. For many years, I worked in ICUs and ran ICUs at our hospital completely. And my younger colleagues I've supported have taken the brunt, and I'm sure Reece perhaps we've got a little bit of it as well during the COVID-19 epidemic, and it was rough. It was rough. A number of them had real battle fatigue, and I saw my role in that role as just to encourage my colleagues, because many of them were exhausted. One of our GP colleagues said he felt like he was in a war. Going to work every day was like just putting yourself into the trenches every single time. And a number of my specialist friends said, they just couldn't carry on like this. If the fourth wave had been as bad as the first three, they just would have burned out. So it's been rough. I think the general public is aware of it, but perhaps not the degree of severity. So, and then the other point I'd like to make is that I was just so impressed with the caliber of our younger colleagues who've risen to the occasion and who showed great skill and compassion and courage in looking after these patients. So it had a huge impact, and mercifully things in this country are so much better at the moment. Everybody's catching their breath, but it was rough and it was tiring. But it was a lovely time of togetherness. I mean, I think there was a lot. We talked a little bit a moment ago about private versus state issues, and I think there was a blending of that. And certainly in the first couple of months of the pandemic, there was a very rapid interchange of patients and resources. So it was a good thing in many respects, but very tough.
Thank you very much. One of our young Selbornians is asking, what can we do to better our chances to get into medical school or better prepare us for the field now in school? This is a young Selbornian, Daria Stradom. Anybody?
Okay, I'll probably volunteer to that. Yeah, again, I wish it was an easy answer. In a practical sense, when I was doing it, so that was 2013, 2014 when I was pushing. NBTs counted a lot. It was almost funny to think. I think at that stage the NBTs might have weighted the exact same as what my matric finals did, and it's not you don't really put the same importance on that while you are studying. NBTs is sort of this extra thing you have to do on the side, and you don't realize, depending on where you're applying, it actually counts as much as your normal marks. And then the most universities do a personal consideration now, where you submit basically a mini CV to them. You're not making one up yourself. It's templated for you, but things that might have helped me is they always talk about the community service things. Really just get involved as much as you can, where you can, whatever you can do. I did soup kitchens, worked at soup kitchens while I was at school, visited old age homes. We are not in the fortunate position as some other cities that have a junior city council. I know Port Elizabeth and Durban do it, and that's quite a big thing for them. And most of them, you know, who are heading up those societies get into our classes. But do what you can. And then, yeah, when I did job shadowing, I did it for quite a while at Free. They actually printed out a nice certificate for me and validated that I'd done that and spent time there. And I sent that through. Whether it helped or not, I'm not sure. But yeah, I like to think that it made a difference.
Thank you very much. I've got another question here. Most university students in the health sciences faculty are more than often passionately involved in extracurricular activities such as sport. How have gents been able to pursue your hobbies in order to keep a balance between work and relaxation? This comes from, again, from Mr. Deer.
Personally, I think gym is very important. Physical health goes line in line with mental health, you know. When you have a stressful day at the office, you want to go out and work out at gym. So try and incorporate physical exercise between, maybe before your meals, you know, before supper, you go to gym for a couple of minutes or so, then come back, hit the shower, have your supper, then study, you know. So try and make it a routine and, you know, try and make it a part of your lifestyle. I would encourage it like that. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Looks like any more questions? And I've got no more questions coming in at the moment. But maybe, I don't know what one could say about the brain drain, and obviously the attraction of going overseas as opposed to staying in the country, and obviously we need our doctors to stay. So if anyone would like to comment on it, and how do we manage to keep our doctors and our pharmacists and optometrists here in South Africa?
I'd make a comment. I welcome other comments, but I think one of the attractions with working in the medical field or in health sciences is that it does allow you to travel, and I think that there can be a distinction between traveling and growing and learning and enjoying the world and seeing things that you wouldn't otherwise see, as opposed to brain drain and immigration. So when I had a very happy 4 years in the UK, and I would recommend travel to anybody who was interested. I personally found that I then developed a desire to come home, and I've never had a desire to leave since then. But I do think the world is global now, and I think many of the people matriculating now will live in other countries, and I think my children might well live in other countries, and we have to accept that the world is global. And unfortunately, the only way to stop the brain drain is to make South Africa a safe, interesting, and exciting place to be. And when people are qualified, in whatever they're qualified in, they're going to find jobs in other places if those places are more attractive, and it's just the way it is. I'm not supporting it, but I do think it's a reality.
Thank you very much. It's actually yes.
Sorry, no, I just wanted to add, with you know, lots of professional people leaving, especially in the medical sort of field, to go overseas. It's not actually as easy as some of the other professions. They're quite strict. I know that I have looked at, you know, optometry elsewhere, and there are some countries that you actually need to do a full conversion to be able to just practice there, and that comes at quite a substantial cost in their currency and not in our currency. So, you know, South Africa is not all as doom and gloom as people say. We're actually very fortunate here. We see a lot of things that the rest of the world doesn't. And yeah, I think being here in South Africa, we can still make a difference to the people who need it most, actually.
Thank you very much. I don't see any more questions come in. It's been really, really interesting hearing from each one of you, and I've definitely learned a lot, and I'm sure each person that's been tuning in has learned quite a lot from each one of you, and it's such a wonderful experience to have some old Selbornians come back and give us some feedback on their careers. And I'm sure the people that are interested in a medical career have all learned quite a bit from each one of you. Thank you very, very much for doing what you have done.